When it comes to the performance of this pistol, at first, I was honestly pretty disappointed. On my first couple hundred rounds, my first range trip, I thought this pistol was meh at best. I was like, is this really worth 4 or 5 times as much as just a Glock 17? So I'm now over 1,000 rounds in to the Staccato HD. And my opinions, thoughts, and feelings about this pistol have changed drastically from my first impressions to where I'm at now. So today we're gonna take a look at the 2011 that takes Glock mags. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, aren't there other 2011s or double stack 1911s that take Glock magazines? Yes, there absolutely are. However, they are all very different from the HD. They are mostly just double-stacked 1911s that are very traditional, other than the fact that they take Glock magazines. Yes, there's some with more customization like the Stealth Arms Platypus, or some that are very affordable like the Fusion Firearms XP Pro, but the Staccato HD is very unique for numerous reasons. First off, that it is not appealing just to the average consumer or to a collector, but to the duty and military market. The first way they do that is with the fully ambidextrous design. This pistol has an ambidextrous slide release, ambidextrous safety, and a fully reversible magazine release, making it ambidextrous because a Glock magazine can have a left or right-sided magazine release, unlike the standard 2011 magazine that only has the notch on one side. So this is a fully ambidextrous pistol. So not only does the HD have an ambidextrous slide release, but it has an extended slide release, meaning in theory, I should be able to drop the slide with my dominant hand thumb, which if I try really hard, I can. But I have to really change my grip to reach it, and at that point it kind of defeats the purpose. Maybe someone with really long thumbs can. I have about average sized hands and thumbs, so I feel like I should be able to if it is extended, but it's just not extended enough for me, because ultimately you're fighting the safety itself, because the safety sticks up over the slide release in order to hit the slide release. If the safety sat lower, then it'd be okay, but then you also might inadvertently ride the slide release and your slide wouldn't lock back. So I understand why it's designed that way. What this does allow for, though, is you can still do the traditional come up, insert your magazine, and use your support hand thumb to drop the slide release, or you can come up, insert your magazine, and utilize your index finger, your trigger finger, to drop the slide. That is something a lot of lefties tend to do, especially on 2011s, but pretty much any pistol out there that does not have an ambidextrous slide release, or people that have been shooting so long that they're used to this, where they'll come up, drop their magazine with their middle finger, and then drop their slide with their index finger. So you can adopt that lefty technique of sorts with this pistol and still be able to rather quickly drop the slide, as opposed to the time it takes to come up and use that support hand thumb. They also got rid of the beaver tail or backstrap or grip safety. This safety would normally have to be engaged by gripping the pistol properly, and if you had a less than ideal grip or you were not used to gripping and grabbing 2011s and 1911s, you may not properly engage it. So with this pistol, it's not a problem. It also allows you to get higher on the pistol, and anytime you can get higher on the pistol, closer to be in line with the pistol, that lowers the bore axis, and ultimately that helps with felt recoil and with control over the firearm. Something else the HD has is a very unique optic mounting system. Now, it does have irons forward, which is new for Staccato, but is not new to the market. Irons forward has been a thing for quite some time. I think it is the best way to go if you're going to run optics on your pistol, and this pistol is definitely a pistol made for optics. The host mounting system from Staccato is very unique because instead of having your optic screw into your plate and your plate screw into the actual slide, the optic actually screws all the way into the slide of the pistol. However, it does require spacer plates, and I will touch a little bit more of that later in the negatives, so stay tuned for that because there is a problem with it. Now, arguably the biggest thing this pistol has to make it a duty pistol is the fact that it is truly drop safe. A lot of people may not realize, but standard 1911s and 2011s are not actually drop safe. If you drop a standard 1911, 2011, a 70 series, as they are referred to, on their muzzle, it can send the firing pin forward, striking your chambered round, causing the gun to go off. Now, this is not something that's going to happen every time, but it's something that can happen. With the Staccato HD, they have used the 80 series design, which implements a firing pin block. The firing pin block does change the trigger a little bit, but not to a drastic amount. The trigger on the HD is actually very, very nice. You have a little bit of take up, a nice defined wall, and a very crisp break. You can see right here one more time. Nice take up, a nice defined wall, crisp break, and that reset is very, very smooth, very minimal, and very positive, allowing you to shoot this pistol very quickly and very accurately. A lot of the early HDs did have issues with their trigger. A lot of people were complaining that the trigger did not feel very crisp. It had a lot of grit, a lot of mush to it. However, my HD has been nothing but a fantastic trigger, and comparing it to something like a Staccato P or other 2011s that I've shot, it is about the same. So I don't think this one has a trigger issue. I can't speak for every HD out there, but it does seem that Staccato has been making some stealth fixes to the pistol, and I will touch on those a little bit later. So some of these stealth fixes are not only the trigger being improved, but the actual grip profile itself. Because they removed the beaver tail safety, it did allow you to get higher up on the gun. However, it caused some hot spots here where the safeties engage along with the frame. It just wasn't very comfortable. A lot of people were getting hot spots in the web of their hand between their index finger and their thumb. I have had no such hotspots on this pistol, and Staccato has actually been kind of secretly offering the service where people can send in their pistols and get it remelded and reformed to be a lot more comfortable. However, it seems that this HD that I just recently got was changed and reformed to have a much better grip profile. So I've not been getting any of those hotspots there. I'm able to grip this pistol very well and not get any pain or discomfort in my hand. Now, something this pistol does very well is that grip texture. The grip texture is phenomenal. It is super aggressive, super grippy. I have had no complaints whatsoever. My hands are not slipping and sliding all over this thing like I am with some other 2011s and 1911s that I've shot, or just some other pistols in general. The slide serrations are also very nice and aggressive. If you grab on the slide serrations, you are not going to lose control of this pistol. They are going to lock right into your hand, whether you're using the front or rear slide serrations. Of course, you have your Optic here, so you can just use your Optic or these irons forward here. But it is nice that you have some aggressive slide serrations, so whatever way you want to manipulate your pistol, you're able to do so. Now, speaking of finishing and some negatives, the first one I want to touch on is the slide. This is the HD, so perhaps it means you can see all the machining marks in high definition, because I can see CNC marks along the tops of my slide. Not the direct top, but these kind of angled top areas here on the slide that gives it a cool, aggressive look. Well, I can very easily see that this was CNC'd machined. It is not like the sides of the slide or the top of the slide or the actual steel frame of the pistol where it is smooth, finished steel. You can actually still see those machining marks. Now, to Staccato's credit, I did call them and spoke to their customer support, and they said if I sent it in, they would fix it. However, this pistol, which I had to wait several months for to finally get in hand, I do not want to be sending out to wait more time for just for some cosmetic blemishes. Should there be cosmetic blemishes at this price point? Absolutely not. However, I'm willing to let it slide for now, unless I have some other issues with the pistol that make me have to send it in anyways, because I really don't want to have to deal with it. I'd rather just keep shooting this pistol and keep using it. Continuing with the finish, I did get the preferred package. Now, the preferred package means you get one additional magazine, and I'll touch on the magazines a little bit later, and a DLC-coated barrel. The rest of the slide and frame does have their DLC finish or diamond-like carbon finish. That means it's incredibly durable, incredibly resistant. It's not going to rust. Nothing like that's going to happen. The base package does have a stainless barrel. Stainless does have a propensity to rust and wear out over time. It will take some time, but the DLC will last longer, and I think the black on black look just looks better. So the preferred package really doesn't give you a whole lot. I wish it would give you some other things, which I'll touch on later, but it does at least give you that nice DLC coated barrel and an additional magazine. Now, touching on the things I wish were in the preferred package are optic plates, or their optic spacers, or whatever they want to call them, because they advertise this as direct mounted. You don't have to use any optic plates, but you need their optic spacers, and their optic spacers are not included in the box. I cannot buy one bulk combo and get every optic spacer possible for whatever optic I want to put in this pistol. No, I have to spend a significant amount of money on each individual optic spacer I want to put on this pistol. That's ridiculous. There is no package of this pistol that includes one. You don't get one for free with a code or something like the Walther PDP, or like most pistol manufacturers out there, you don't just get them all out of the box. And at this price point, I do not see why at least the preferred package, or maybe the Premier package or whatever it's called, I don't know why that does not get free optic plates out of the box. I think that's utterly ridiculous. I think that is completely stupid, and I really wish Staccato would do something more intelligent and have those included, because why am I spending so much money on a pistol to then have to go and spend so much money just to mount an optic to it, when this is clearly a pistol based on the iron sights and the design that is made for an optic? Now, talking about the sights, I do have some gripes with them. The front sight is not a standard 1911, 2011 pattern sight, but it is a SIG pattern sight, which, you know, that's fine. There's plenty of aftermarket parts out there for it, but it would be nice if it was a standard 1911 sight. I'm not sure why they deviated from that, but the rear sight is really the biggest offender for me because there's no footprint for it. It's literally put in place with a pin that is punched through and it's locked in place. And I wish I could get different height sights, because on some optics, you need the higher height sights, like the RMR HD or the SRO, where the optic itself sits pretty high. But on this Holosun SCS 320, it actually sits rather low. So I see a lot of my sights through my optic, and I would like them to be a heck of a lot lower, but unfortunately, that is not an option. Another thing that's annoying is with the preferred package, you get this tritium high-vis front sight, which that'd be cool if you're shooting irons, but I'm shooting a red dot, and I would prefer a blacked out front sight. Now, I can go and get a blacked out front sight, but I really wish that was an option. I'm paying extra money. Why not include both in the box or something? I really don't think why it's preferred to have a tritium sight when I'm running an optic. So obviously one of the most important things when it comes to evaluating any pistol potentially for duty is performance and reliability. When it comes to the performance of this pistol, at first, I was honestly pretty disappointed. My first couple hundred rounds, my first range trip, I thought this pistol was meh at best. I was like, is this really worth 4 or 5 times as much as just a Glock 17? However, it was not for the reason you think. It's not because this pistol couldn't perform, it's because I couldn't perform with this pistol. Let me tell you why. So, Staccato eliminated the grip or beaver tail safety of the pistol, allowing you to get higher up on the pistol. So you'd think, oh, this thing should perform even better than a standard 2011 because you can get a higher grip. Well, you'd think. However, the problem with such a higher grip is in recoil sometimes, because naturally when I shoot a 1911 or 2011, my thumb rests on the safety, but I don't drive down on the safety. My support hand, because it's also higher, would push up on the safety, engaging it, causing me to have malfunctions induced by the user, but a malfunction nonetheless. So when I would shift my grip to really ride that safety and change my support hand grip, I wasn't used to that because I've been using the same grip for a long time now. It's been very effective on many other pistols, but because this pistol is unique in its design, I was not having a consistent grip out of the holster. I was not having good grip pressure, so ultimately my shooting performance was degrading. After I put in a lot of reps in dry fire and went out to the range a couple more times and hit that 1,000 round mark, that's when I was starting to get really comfortable with this pistol and was noticing how well this pistol can truly perform. Not only is this pistol very accurate, and the very nice 2011 style trigger really assists with that, but also this pistol has an incredible return to zero. I think it has to do with the non-reciprocating mass of the pistol. I think it's balanced very well, and they take advantage of that mass very well, because this pistol goes right back on target, so you can shoot it very accurately and very quickly. Now, continuing on talking about the safety, there is another issue I have with it. And it's not with the function of the safety, but more ergonomically of the safety. So while there is no hotspots here for me, they did blend this very well where you don't have any hotspots here at the rear of the grip, I do have a comfort issue of sorts when it comes to my dominant hand thumb. If you notice here, my dominant hand thumb is pretty chewed up here, and that is from the slide itself. The rear of the slide right here, the notch for the safety, actually ends up digging into my thumb as the slide cycles and takes that chunk of skin off. Now, to be fair, I've not had a ton of range trips with my new grip. I shot about 500 rounds in my last range trip with that new grip, and it was only near the end where I started to notice this. So it could just have been maybe one point I gripped it the wrong way, but even just holding the pistol here, I can see with my grip where it clearly is digging into there. You can clearly see, yep, it's digging into the thumb. So it might just be something I have to build up a callus with over time. Like, I've started to build a callus on my palm right here, which is from the screw on the side of the grip. Not a huge deal, just normally things that we're wearing against and digging into, we are gonna form some calluses. Like I said, not a huge problem. But I wonder if over time I'll be able to form some sort of callus there, or if it is gonna be a consistent reoccurring wound like some people get on slide bite on some pistols. We shall see. But that is really my only discomfort issue with it, is the fact that I am getting a little bit of that slide bite of sorts on my dominant hand thumb. Now we've talked about performance, let's talk about reliability. I got this pistol out of the box and did not add one drop of lube, did not take it apart once. I left it completely as is from the factory, other than throwing on an optic and a light on here. And this thing has had 0 reliability issues in over 1,000 rounds. I've not had one failure to feed, failure to fire, failure to eject, extract, nothing. The only time I've had any malfunctions is when I would inadvertently activate the safety, but once I corrected my grip, I had 0 problems at all. So this pistol is very reliable. Now, I will say, one of the reasons I haven't taken this thing apart or cleaned it is not just to see how far it will go, but because it's super annoying to take this thing down. Standard 1911s and 2011s, you just push out the slide release and then you're good to go to take it apart. However, with this pistol, not only do you have to push out the slide release, but first you have to take off the ambidextrous slide release to be able to do it. And there's also a spring in here that can end up getting lost and discarded, and it's a giant pain. So I've kind of held off on doing some work on this pistol just because it's kind of annoying, and ultimately it's been perfectly reliable, and I do want to kind of push this to its limits and see how much can I shoot this thing before it needs to be cleaned. Now, something else with this pistol is magazine compatibility. Obviously, it advertises as something that takes Glock pattern magazines, but how many Glock pattern magazines actually work with this thing? Well, obviously, I tried standard Glock magazines, fits in, locks back, feeds, no issues. I also tried Magpul's P-Mags, locks in, slide locks to the rear, feeds, fits, no issues. I even tried these ETS magazines that are massive extendo mags, and ETS magazines tend not to be the most reliable magazines, but they fit in, slide locks to the rear, it feeds, it functions no problem. And then you have the magazines from Staccato. These are Metgar magazines that actually hold 18 rounds instead of 17 like standard Glock 17 magazines. Fit, lock in, feed, no problems, and obviously you'd hope the included magazines work in this thing no problem. Something else I tried was taking these new 18-round Metgar magazines, which Metgar is a very well-known, very popular, and very reliable and reputable magazine company, and putting them in my standard Glocks. And they fit, fed, locked back, did everything I needed them to do, no issues. So if you're a Glock guy or someone who runs a Glock pattern gun and wants some new magazines to run, these aren't bad at all, because they're slightly more expensive than standard Glock mags, depending where you find them, and depending where you find your standard Glock mags, but they hold an additional round, and I found in general that metal magazines eject more freely from polymer pistols than polymer magazines do. So one thing I want to touch on is this pistol does get very hot. Like I said, I haven't shot a ton of 1911 2011s, but when I shot the Springfield Prodigy, it never got this warm. And I don't know if it's the way it's designed or maybe because it's a shorter barrel, so there's less surface area for heat to dissipate, but I was definitely feeling that heat when I was putting my thumb here in this little thumb groove here, which by the way, very cool. I definitely like it, helps with the grip. But I was feeling it there, and I was even feeling it on my weapon light. And mind you, I was not using my weapon light the entire range day. It was simply that the heat from the gun was transferring into the weapon light, and the weapon light got extremely hot. Now, I really don't care about this weapon light or what happens to it. I'm only using it so I can use my Blackhawk Omnivore, because as right now, I don't have a holster for it. In fact, that's one of my complaints with the pistol, that when this duty pistol was first released, there were no duty holsters to go with it. It was just a week or two ago that Safariland finally released a 6000 series holster for the pistol, but you would think a pistol that is advertised for duty reliability and duty performance would have a duty holster available at release, because pistols live and die by their aftermarket support, so I really hope that Staccato has gotten with some of these other manufacturers to make sure we do get proper aftermarket support, and it's not going to be a trickle down, because that's when pistols tend to die off. Alright guys, so those were my initial impressions / 1000 round review of the Staccato HD. The reason I am not just making this my review and that's it is because this is a very new platform. There have been no other pistols like it before. This is very unique in terms of its features and its design. So I want to keep on running this thing, keep on running it without cleaning or lubing it as long as I can to see how reliable this thing, how dependable this thing is, and if it is truly an option for duty use. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the video, if you liked seeing my review / first impressions of the Staccato HD, then go ahead and leave a like down below. If you hated the video, if you think all you need is a Glock and anything else is for losers, then go ahead and leave a dislike down below. Otherwise guys, head in the comments. What are your thoughts on the Staccato HD? Do you own one? Have you shot one? Let me know down below. Otherwise guys, I'm releasing new videos every Saturday. Subscribe and stay tuned.